the members of Lost Prophets are back in a new band.
Please tell me they're called artists formerly known as Nonce.
They're called No Direction, I think.
No Direction. No. Why would you associate yourself with a teen pop band? Come on. That's like how to disguise paedophilia 101. Not that I've attended that class.
They're called No Devotion, not No Direction. Sorry, I got that wrong.
Oh, that would have... Yeah. I'm disappointed now, even though I chastised them for it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a support slot with them. Who knows?
I don't think we'll fit with an emo band, Mark. Assuming they're an emo band. I've no idea what they sound like.
I thought emo wasn't a genre, Tom.
It's already started. It's already started. It's 2003 night here on the Cacophony Sessions as we look back 20 years to figure out the top 15 songs of 2003. We've been thinking about nothing but baggy jeans, wallet chains, crunk, grown-up Britney, solo Beyonce, the worst Tomb Raider game ever made, the most boring part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and Finding Nemo. Is that enough nostalgia for you? Well, I hope so. My name's Dan Whittle, and I was 16 in 2003. Some of my music taste was really bad back then. Who wants to see if it's just as bad today? As always... We're 4 seasons in, you know the drill by now. I've got a bunch of men in varying degrees of decay ready to help me with this list. The returning Jim.
It's been revealed that the junior Treasury Minister, Michael Portillo, carries a sawn-off shotgun to constituency meetings, corners children in parks and chews their cheeks, and has frequent sexual intercourse with stray animals, claiming, as long as it's got a backbone, I'll do it.
Alex?
You drink a lot of Sprite because you look so delicious.
Oh, that hurt. Martyn?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Martyn, and I'm
He's always my
back again,
favourite.
and I just put this one-liner off the internet. It's like I can't even be bothered, man.
Oh, and that's not... We can just do that?
Hang on, I think that may be a callback to the last episode he was on where I told him to stop making effort. Well done, Martyn. Consistency for
thanks,
once.
man.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
Tom.
man.
If text kisses were real kisses, the world would be an orgy.
You've definitely used that before.
I know, I've used that before.
There's no second chances on one-liners.
Oh.
So we're the Cacophony Sessions. We're a shambles as always. And we're going to kick this off how we normally start off this podcast. And it's our warm-up session in which we take a song from the back of everyone's brains and find out if it's any good or not. It's time to find out, does it slap?
Don't trade a podcast where the jingles are crap. So let's take a good song and ask, does it slap?
Who wants to go? Who's stepping into the fire?
Should we go with Boom Shakalak by Apache Indian?
Oh! Yes, I will happily have that, which I heard recently at an occasion, which we'll get onto in a bit. What does everyone else think? That's a banger, that is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's getting in.
It's also especially good because it's featured in such a feel-good scene in Dumb and Dumber as well, with the sheepdog wagon.
Well, whilst we're on films, can we also go back to our original statement? There is no boring part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, I'm with Al on this.
Yeah,
sorry.
I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to interrupt.
I wanted to interrupt, but I wasn't happy.
I'm far more transparent than I thought I was. I thought I'd cram opinions into that opening without fear of retort. I've been snared, so now I'm going to have to discuss some of these, I feel. The worst part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the third part, closely followed by the second part, and then the first part. I don't like the Lord of the Rings, I don't like Tolkien as a writer, and I don't find those films... I don't know why I'm discussing film, but here we are.
So you could finish your sentence, but all we're going to disregard is just
you're
waffle.
I just think that there's enough material to make it a good TV series. 9 hours of films, I know it's an insane amount, but it's not enough to cover that in full detail, and it's too much to be casual. So yeah, before we get too comfortable in our 2003 shoes, what's the news?
I bought a drum kit today.
Oh,
That's pretty
Nice. What did you get?
Nice.
A Yamaha Stage Custom.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
It's,
lovely.
Yeah, it's quite nice. Obviously it's not like a $2,000 kit or anything, but it's a kit I wanted. And luckily there's someone on Facebook Marketplace over in Saltash selling it. And a week ago he said he'd already given it away or selling it to a guy who put a deposit down for it. They said, if he doesn't come through the money, I will let you know. And boom, it's mine. I like the color. It's good. I'm going to sell about half of the shit I got and actually recuperate some of my money. I got it for 500 quid, all hardware, all cymbals, everything. Like, even his drum stool was worth like 130 quid. I looked at one of the cymbals I'm probably not going to be using. It. They're on eBay for 120 quid right now. So yeah, the kit itself, like brand new, was like just the shell was like 900 quid. So I've done pretty well out of this. So I'm pretty happy, man. I'm pretty stoked, and I have to make room for it. And my dining room currently has got, 2 drum kits sat in there. So my other half is not particularly pleased about that. So I need to get them shifted.
Just tell her not to beat herself up about it.
I enjoyed that.
James, congratulations. The last time I saw you was at your wedding. How's married life?
Pretty all right. We've not had any major fallings out yet. That's
Always good.
Yeah, just basking in the glory of married life currently.
Yeah.
Is it similar to pre-married life?
It's very, very similar to pre-married life, except now I've got a ring on my finger.
Wow. I also have rings on my finger, but that's just because I'm a ponce.
We had, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
My wedding, and I'm bloody glad that the weather wasn't like it is or has been this weekend.
Yeah.
Because it's been torrential rain the entire time.
But we did have a little bit of rain up in Manchester for the wedding. But it didn't didn't dampen spirits, and we had steel drums, we had ska. It was fantastic.
Yes, it was a very good day. I was very drunk that day. There is definitely a thing.
And the day after as well.
Oh my God, the day after, I was paralytic by like 11 in the morning.
I've got like zero memory past on the Sunday.
I had the pleasure of arguing with Alex until about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then seeing him suffer the next day in the car as he contemplated his own mortality in a vacuum of misery that was entirely created by himself. It was wonderful, actually. It was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in the last few weeks, actually. It was good.
I don't think we were arguing. I think we were debating.
It was more of a debate. But neither of us are particularly violent men, so it was all very above board and polite. Yeah. Tom, what have you been doing?
Love.
Yes, that was late.
I was at the wedding as well, and then it's been a busy couple of weeks, but I did get a chance to listen to some of the new album by a band from 2003 who aren't on our list, and that's The Used. Have a new album out.
Oh,
do they?
Yeah, it's not really for me because it sounds like they did in 2003, but I'm not 15, 16 anymore, so I'm not as excited by it. But if you still like that style from then, you'll like the new record.
I like everything. The problem is everything they've made past their first album, I really dislike.
Yeah, their first album was fantastic. The new album is not as good as their first album. Also, I've been listening to Hell is for Heroes, The Neon Handshake a lot again lately because Al and I are off to see them next April because that's booking gig tickets. How do I know what I'm going to be doing next April? Now I know I'm going to watch Hell is for Heroes, but that's a long way in advance to book gigs.
You might be in prison for some of your scores this evening.
I don't think I was that mean.
We'll get on to that. There was just a witty retort.
Oh, very good, because your name is Witty.
Well, amongst friends, Jim. Amongst friends.
Associates.
Yes, and colleagues. Strictly.
Work colleagues.
Martyn.
Yeah, what have I been doing?
Well, that's what you need to tell us.
I don't know, man.
So should we throw it out there to the room? What has Martyn been doing? It's our new segment, guys. What has Martyn been up to? Jim, what do you think he's been doing?
I reckon he's been trying to make contact with the elusive Baphomet.
Oh, maybe. Alex, what's your guess?
I'm going to go with amateur bungee jumping, like jumping just out of his flat window, but using an extension lead.
Yep. And Tom?
He's been rehearsing with our band, ready for our gig on Friday at Rock Bottom Bar in Plymouth.
Oh, he's done it. The seamless link.
Yeah. I know. I had to get them.
Seamlessly. I could see him sat on the edge of his chair. So this is my chance to shine. And shine you did, Tom.
I managed to get a plug-in without...
We don't sound like complete Berks. It's amazing. I've just ruined it. My guess for what Martyn's been up to would be all of the above. So Martyn, what's the correct answer?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Baphomet was a highlight.
Next month, we'll open it up to you, the audience. So let us know what you think Martyn's been up to.
No, I'm actually more interested in what you've been doing, Dan. To be fair.
Well, what I've been doing, Martyn, is pondering about what you've been doing. I've done nothing but that, actually. I've got a chart on my phone. The things that I've been doing today. Tuesday. I wonder if Martyn knows that I'm writing this. Wednesday, there was a stroke of thunder in the night. Maybe Baphomet is here. Must text Martyn. Thursday, watch Twin Peaks. Martyn loves that bit. I wonder how often Martyn has watched this particular episode. And Friday, sleep.
Nice.
But dream about Martyn. We're going to go into a little bit more depth on recent releases, gigs and stuff on a CAC News episode. And I think I also am going to start including songs that didn't quite make the top 15 tonight. So we will have a chance to talk about that if anybody's interested in a bonus episode for the YouTube channel.
Nah.
Fair enough. Yeah, take us that idea.
It depends what didn't make the list, doesn't it, really?
It does. I of course, do know all the scores from this evening and have had to bite my tongue about revealing who's won. The winning selection tonight will grant the owner of said selection the choice of theme for the next episode. We did pick 15 songs each and scored them out of 10. Tonight's episode will see us running down the top 15. You can find the playlist on Apple Music. I'm sure one of the other guys has got it up on Spotify, but come on, just move already. Some of the guys have decided to copy the IGN scoring system, which I'll pop here. For viewers and for listeners, just go and watch the YouTube channel. Please, go on. It's really pretty. Go and watch that. Or go to the IGN website if you don't want to show us any love, you wankers. So as well as YouTube, you can also see us on all the saucy socials, and not OnlyFans, Only Dan's or Only Den, as we petitioned the courts for it to be renamed. Details of all of that will be displayed during the first intermission on the YouTube channel. But if you really want your fix right now and you just have to yell at us, go to the Twitter handle @CAC Sessions Pod. I just wanted to say rest in power to the wonderful Tony Bennett, who died yesterday after a fantastic career. One of the true greats, was described by Frank Sinatra as being the best vocalist in the game. Yeah, quick shout out to Tony Bennett. Before we get knee deep in 2003, we are going to discuss predictions first. What I want to know is which song you think will win and which song you want to win. That's a lot of W's, which is a first for many of us on this podcast, but here we go. Jim, who do you think will win and who do you want to win?
I think we're all going to say Deftones' Minerva is going to win.
Yes.
And in an ideal world, everyone would see sense and see that the Songs O Higher song is the best song on this list. I know Martyn does agree with that, but I somehow doubt that Alex will in any way.
I absolutely agree with you, Jim.
Just in case it doesn't make the top 15, I should point out it's called Farewell Transmission.
Alex, what do you want to win?
It's not going to make it, and I know that for a fact, but it would be one of my favourite bands, Horse the Band, to win. I didn't score it as highest as the ones I picked, but I still wanted to win. I just know objectively it's worse than some of the other ones, but I love it.
I love it too.
Tom?
The Horse the Band song is called Cutsman.
Yeah.
See, for me, this one's a really tough one. I think I'm going to have to go with the one I want to win is My Coco by Stellar Star, just because that one has real nostalgia for me.
Martyn?
I know Minerva's going to win. And
We've established this.
I want it to win. Personal taste, BRMC, stop. It's just a classic song. I don't think it's going to make the top 15, but I want it to win so badly because that song changed my fucking life. It's everything I like in a rock song.
I'm hoping Beyonce wins because it's such an underdog story. There's no way it's going to make it, but we would be pretty blown away.
We don't have much longer to find out because it's time to find out. I stop saying find out for a start. It's time to discover the top 15 songs of 2003, according to the Cacophony Sessions.
Let's find out.
Number 15. Let's find out what it is.
I'm definitely leaving that bit in. In 15th place and scoring 39.3 points. It's my first appearance on tonight's list.
Ah, damn, we didn't vote all this stuff down.
Oh, man.
Remember Album of the Year, guys? I'm back. This is a song from 2003, obviously. It was featured on the band's self-titled album. It was produced by Jerry Finn and the band themselves and was released in 2004 as a single. It actually got to number 8 in the UK. It is Blink-182 with I Miss You, and I think this is one of the best, if not the best, Blink-182 songs. I personally scored this a 9.5. It's different to a lot of their other material because it's a bit more glossy. I just really think that there's a great kind of dichotomy between the Mark Hoppus vocal and the very idiosyncratic Tom DeLonge vocal that everybody kind of mocks these days. But I just think it's a really good song. It's a great pop song. It does exactly what it needs on the album in terms of track placement within the album. I just think it's a really good song.
I do quite like the song. Unfortunately, Blink-182, I got up to Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, that album, and then this album this is on, I lost it a bit because I didn't like that they were going in a more sort of stadium rock sort of direction, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But the problem is I do quite like Blink-182, and I've heard this song a million times.
Yeah, it's one of their more popular radio hits, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do enjoy it. I was listening to it on the playlist, and I was thought, actually, no, this is a pretty good song. Especially when Tom DeLonge comes in, he's ultra nasally, going, "How are you? And I'm so sorry."
It's at the point now where, when he, as we've established on the podcast before, Tom DeLonge is trying to sing it properly now, and it doesn't sound the same. If he doesn't lay down that particular style of delivery, it doesn't work. The song is good because it's very distinct, I think. I know it was always poppy, and a lot of people at the time all said that this is where Blink-182 have fallen off and they're going to go down just a boring stadium rock mainstream audience direction. And I think it is that, but they haven't sacrificed their creativity and their artistry for it.
I mean, I would say a lot of Blink-182 fans would point to this as their best album. I'm not one of them, but I think, especially like if you're still a fan now and still listening to their current music, I think most people that listen to Blink-182 now like their sound from this album onwards. I think prefer it anyway, but I could be full of shit.
I myself prefer this album to most of their other albums. I think I may prefer Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, but I do really like this album. I listened to it the whole way through for this podcast, and it is a good album. I really enjoyed it. I think there's several good tracks on it. I like the singles. Feeling Good I enjoy as well. Always is catchy. You've got Violence, which is a good song. But I think that this one, because it was the big radio hit that it was, it's got this kind of timeless feel to it because it was designed to be a bit different from their normal catalogue and a bit more stripped back and organic sounding. I think it has that longevity because of that. For me, anyway.
What's the other single on this album, which is essentially this song again?
There's one with Robert Smith on it, which is...
So I know they had another sort of ballady one.
You've got Down as well.
That's the one, yeah. They released that as a single, I think, after this one, directly after it. So you had two songs which are exactly the same tone.
Yeah, it was a bit odd, because Down is a downgrade of this.
It is just the worst version of this song. It just seemed like B-side fodder for me, but whatever.
Yeah, I like this song. I think this is a record that I'm amazed got made, because Tom DeLonge and Travis Barker had gone off and done Boxcar Racer, and Mark Hoppus was really pissed off about it. And it didn't look like they were ever going to get back into a studio together. And then they got back into the studio and made this. And so I remember at first it took me a while to warm to it, because Enema of the State I loved. I didn't really... Everyone at school was really into the Mark Trom and Travis show live, because we were like 12 or 13 and it had swearing in it.
Yeah,
that endless segue of segues at the end where they're just swearing, playing with the crowd.
I mean, their banter on that CD has not aged particularly well.
No, they left it all at the end as well, so you can just skip it if you want to. But why is it on there, especially on the digital editions? If you really want it, go and watch the concert Or I'm sure it's on DVD.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, that was everywhere. And then there was Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which in some ways sounded more mature than Enema of the State until there's that I Wanna Fuck a Dog song.
Yeah.
My personal favourite on the album. Yeah, it's very good.
To be fair, it's the only one anyone remembers off that album.
No, my Stay Together for the
No,
Kids is
yeah.
probably the best song on the album. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's probably tied with this as my favourite Blink-182 song. I don't know what it is about them. So even though they can't technically sing in a similar aesthetic to a traditional ballad singer, that's not in the style, but their ballads, for me, seem to be their best songs. I don't know how...
You don't
they
have
just
to be a
resonate.
good singer. You just have to be a unique sounding singer. And
Yeah.
he's definitely got that.
Martyn, what are your thoughts?
I really like the song. When I was going through the playlist, I was listening to a lot of screamo hardcore stuff, and it was a nice relief. And I actually forgot what a great song it was. Actually, it's just a nice song, man. It's well written. It's just a great song.
Great piano part. I think it's played on a double bass as well. It certainly is in the video, but I'm not sure if it is in the studio. I'm sure it sounds like it is.
If I heard it on the radio, I'd be like, yeah, I'm happy to hear it, but I wouldn't choose. It's Blink-182, isn't it? I'm not into that shit.
There was one person who doesn't have such glowing praise of this song.
Yeah, for full disclosure, I'm the reason that this song isn't higher on the list then.
Yeah. Scoring it 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. If it wasn't for Travis Barker's drum work being phenomenal,
Yeah, it is really good.
then I'd have scored it lower. I'm not a massive Blink-182 fan anyway. I think we talked about that on the
Yeah.
Pop Punk podcast.
Yeah.
I never got really into them. I can't remember which one it is, but the worst sounding voiced one, I can't stand his voice.
Tom DeLonge.
Yeah, probably.
The higher
And-
pitched one.
Yeah, and this song just does nothing for me. Like at least some of their other more pop punky stuff has some energy to it, and I just find it really dull. Apart from the drumming, as I said.
Yeah. Those are our thoughts, and that's why it's in 15th place. We'll move on to 14th place, which is from...
Coming in at number 14.
Let's find out.
We've just found out, but now we're going to find out.
What will it be?
I hope you do that every time.
You'll find out soon.
In 14th place, and scoring 39.8 points. This is one of Martyn's picks, and it's from a debut studio album by a San Francisco quartet. But it's not really a quartet anymore. This is Sun Kill Moon, which is a project that arose from the remnants of Red House Painters,
yes.
and is the primary recording alias of Mark Kozelek. The song is called Carry Me Ohio. Martyn, tell us a bit about this one.
I'm a massive Kozelek stan. I fucking love everything that he does. I've recently got into that kind of Americana thing, that kind of like desert highway sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Kozelek does it so well. And I'm a massive Red House Painters fan. Just nobody does heartbreak on record like Kozelek does. Just extremely emotional. And I think it's great to be into music that is played and well produced and stuff, but to get real emotion across in music is very difficult to do. And I think Kozelek does it in spades. He's amazing. And also, Jim, I know you chose this track originally and you gave it over to me. Man, when you said Sun Kill Moon, I was like, my God, there's someone else who's into the similar sort of music that I'm into. I fucking love
it.
I love dark Americana. It's just, there's something about it. It's just, that whole like trailer park vibe thing going on. It's just beautiful. It's just real. It's absolutely real. And yeah, it's an amazing song. Thank you, Jim.
Jim, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, obviously I was going to nominate it and I let Martyn have a Sun Kill Moon track. But yeah, I've been maybe like 10 years, I've been listening to Kozelek stuff and like, it's just fantastic. Everything he does, he has released so much stuff. He's crazy prolific and it's all just fantastic. And this album's particularly great. His voice is just haunting. It's beautiful.
That's the word right there.
Yeah, I have in my notes here that it's halfway between Willie Nelson and Michael Stipe for me. Two voices that I really enjoy. I think it's also very ahead of its time by about 5 years or so, because I think this would suit the Fleet Foxes, that kind of later 2000s Bon Iver folk
No.
I think it's in that. It is a similar vein. It's got boxy, organic sounding drums. It's a catchy melody. He's got a really strong voice. I really enjoyed this. I scored it 7.5.
This is one of my favourite songs on the list, as you will have seen from my score. I gave it a 9.3. It's purely on the strength of the vocals. There was a big thing starting in about 2002 with sort of alt country doing some really interesting stuff. There's bands that didn't make our shortlist, like My Morning Jacket didn't make the list, and Wilco were around this time, and Rilo Kiley. And I think that Sun Kill Moon manages to is like the stripped back version of that, where it focuses in on the vocals. And I loved Red House Painters in the 1990s as well. Mark Kozelek just sounds like a guy who it's the voice of a man with a really broken heart, and I don't know how he's managed to keep it going as long as he has, because the vocal is just so beautiful and he writes great words that flow really well. This song really resonated with me in a way that a lot of the other songs on the list didn't, because it just purely, weirdly, and this is odd for me, on the strength of the vocal, which you won't hear me say that very often. That tells you how good the vocal is.
Yeah, certainly. I think it does stand out a little bit from a lot of the music at the time, because I think in 2003 there's a lot of hard chaos, and it's nice that there's a few tunes on there that are a little bit more peaceful and a little bit more atmospheric, and this is certainly one of them. It's got that Americana sound that sums it up.
For me, it had the complete opposite effect, because I'll be like, these are some face melters, and then
I was preempted what I was about to say. That might describe it as Americana, but I wonder what adjective Al will be using to describe this song.
What score did I give it?
You gave it a 5, so it's not horrendous.
Yeah, it's well sung, and it's just because we should explain. Me and I followed Tom's lead of doing the IGN scoring.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of songs on here which objectively I don't think are bad, but I find okay. So they might as well call me Nicky Six on this episode. There's been a lot of them.
Why was that not your one-liner?
But I just find that I have a hard time with like songs like this. For me, the lyrics have to be like amazingly depressing, where it's you finish listening, you're like, bloody hell, that's just awful. It's just to leave any sort of resonating feelings after you listen to a good song. And this for me was just, that was a kind of slow, nicely sung song. 5.
I think for me, you have to have experienced a terrible breakup with someone that you love to understand it.
I guess so.
I was listening to this song for this podcast at the same time as being dubbed. So it's one of those songs where if you're in the right frame of mind for it, I think it works very well. But the lyrics are beautiful and poetic. I'm not sure they have that much meaning in them. A lot of this album is about boxers.
Yeah, they're named after a Korean boxer, and 3 of the tracks on the album, which is called Ghosts of the Great Highway, 3 of the tracks are named after boxers. And this song was actually listed at number 462 on Pitchfork's top 500 songs of the 2000s. It is a critically acclaimed track. As with always on this podcast, it's best if you do listen to the songs, pause between each song, listen to it. So decide for yourself.
Yeah. In
13th place.
Let's find out.
That's not going to get old at all. The next 2 songs also have 39.8. The second of them is Al's pick, and this is a Manchester band. They're classifying as a mathcore band.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of excitement going on. This is from the album Breaking the Fourth Wall. The song is Dead for Weeks, and the band is Beecher.
Oh, yes, man.
I wasn't expecting this one to make the top 15. Unfortunately, Beecher one of those bands where they're quite obscure. And
they're so good.
But there's like that one album, Breaking the Fourth Wall, is one of the best albums in the genre. It's so good. And then they signed to Nuclear Blast and became a bit more metally, and they just got worse, and everyone was unhappy.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, me and Tom.
Yeah.
But this song is so good. It's the perfect amount of time, and it is no like the structure is fantastic. I even like how it rings out at the end, just like the riff. Oh, so cool. It's just really heavy. I saw him live when he visited Plymouth, and they were really good then. I've had the singer's arse brush my face as he whizzed by when he was swinging on a banister thing. A banister. Paul.
Yeah.
I'd like to think We Are One Now. I think it's a class band. I think they're a bit more of a punk version of Dillinger Escape Plan. They're not quite as technical, but it's better for it because they rock out a bit more. And drumming's insane, and I think I just love the vocalist. I've always been a big fan of high-pitched metal vocals. I much prefer them to lows, and I think
me too.
Really good. You can't do it live, but it sounds amazing on the CD.
Yeah. On record, he has one of the best that sort of metalcore scream. It's one of the best out there. Mercury Switch off this album was my ringtone for about 10 years until it went off on a clinic when I had patients in. That's track 5 on this album. And if you listen to it, you'll hear why that's incredibly inappropriate. But no, I like my sort of mathcore, metalcore, and I think Breaking the Fourth Wall is arguably the best album in the genre, and very few people have heard of it, and it is an absolute shame. I didn't know what track to pick from this album, but I knew they had to be on they had to be on my list for this year, and then Al picked one, and I was like, oh, I quite agree with that track. That's great. I don't have to pick,
it was
pick
easy
which
to
one
pick
now.
because that was the not single, but it's the only song that got a music video.
Mercury Switch was on a Rock Sound. There was a live video that did. Yeah, there's a live video that they did for that as well. But yeah, this album's brilliant. They did one album after this, which is good, but not as good as this. This was just, it's brutal and clever. And I've listened to this album so many times, I don't really know what else to say about it. I absolutely love it. I gave it a 10. It's one of 6 10s I gave out, I think.
I gave this one a 10 as well, but if you don't like their second album, the EP before it was a Nintendo versus Sega or something it was called, or something random. That was a pretty good EP. Not as good as Yarn, but that was pretty good if you want to listen to more.
Jim, you scored it slightly lower, scoring it at 9, but you still really enjoyed it then. What are your thoughts?
No.
I was just giving out too many 10s. That's probably the only reason I gave it a 9.
He hit his quota, and that was it.
Yeah. Once you've done 10 10s, it's all 9s from there. But it's such a good song. And where it was on the playlist, obviously I won't give away what's around it, but
the playlist is up in alphabetical order on Apple Music.
So you can go away and listen to the song before it and then hear how much better this song is than it.
The one before it, which probably won't make this top 15, the one before it was Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how bad that song was after, not bad, but just nowhere near as good as I remembered. But anyway, back on topic, this song's just brilliant. It's heavy as fuck. And brilliant vocals, especially there's the kind of outro bit that's just all mathy and guitar stabs. It's very nice.
Yeah. That bit salvaged the song a little bit for me. I described it as chugging thrash, almost industrial synth sounding instrumental outro. I really like that. That salvaged the song by a whole 3 points for me, because before that I just thought it was really messy and chaotic, and it's not really my style, and it was just really unmanageable for me. But I did put that it may work better in the context of the album. The vocals are good. I don't dislike the vocals on this one. I dislike a lot of heavy metal vocals, but I agree with you guys when you say that you prefer the higher pitch stuff. Yeah. So I do think that this is a good vocal performance on it. It's very heavy, but because it's quite short, relatively short, and goes through a cycle and ends up somewhere completely different, I thought it was a little bit disorienting. So it made me think that it's probably better on the album. I scored it a 5.8. I thought it was okay.
Technically, an okay would be a 6.
Hey, we don't have to stick to IGNs. I prefer to score things out of 100, so I can. I'm a sucker for a decimal point, I'm afraid.
I use decimal points as well, to be fair.
Yeah,
I'd use any.
Just lazy. Martyn, you scored it a 5.
Yeah,
you bastard.
I can't be dealing with those vocals, man. I think I was a little bit fatigued by a lot of the heavy screamo stuff that I'd listened to before, and I was just craving something a little bit more authentic, and it didn't sound. It's really greatly played. It's amazing musicianship and all of that, but I think I was just listening to it in the wrong context. And I think that sort of music I would fucking love usually, but I just was not in the right frame of mind.
If you want a more accessible track off the album to start with, and the first track that I listened to a lot from this album was the only one I know that's a little bit more accessible than this one. This track is very much proper mathcore, like the intro, the heavy bit, like every bar's a different time signature. It's fucking brilliant.
No,
it is.
don't get me wrong. It was brilliant, but I just didn't enjoy listening to it because I was just in the wrong frame of mind for that kind of thing.
It's fine.
And that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
With our podcast and with our, like, when we have to, like, listen through a fucking playlist and not in the right frame of mind for certain types of music.
Also tied in 12th place is one of Tom's picks. This one is from an American band
Nice.
who produced a self-titled debut album in 2003, produced by Tim O'Hare. The song, it was featured in the video game MVP Baseball 2004 and on the season 2 finale of the Netflix series Special in 2021. I'm sure we have a big crossover audience with those. This is My Coco by the band Stellar Star.
I love this song so much. Weirdly, I didn't get into this song in 2003. I got into it in 2005. So in 2005, we went to university, and there used to be a thing where it's we were in a hall of residence, and all the computers on the hall of residence network, if you had one of the old versions of iTunes, you could listen to anyone else in the hall of residence music that they had on their computer. And there was this girl called Deborah who I really liked, and we used to smoke together because we were in a smoking halls of residence, so you were allowed to smoke cigarettes in your room. Just to make that clear.
What else could you possibly smoke, Tom?
I know,
Cigarettes
there's
are
lots
the
of
only
other things.
thing that's smokable, surely.
Oh, crack, definitely.
The audience were going, yeah, Tom definitely smokes crack all the time.
All the time.
It's so Moorish, isn't it?
Absolutely. Can't get enough of it. She used to walk around the corridor singing this song, and then I discovered what it was, and then we listened to this album and smoked quite a lot. And it's just a great pop song. I mean, it's indie rock, but it's a really good pop song. I really like the singer's voice. It's got that sort of 80s revival thing that really started in the early 2000s. I just love it a lot. It brings back, every time I listen to it, it brings back memories of being back at university again, and maybe that's why I love it.
I really like this one. I think I scored it pretty high. But yeah, I've got to admit, when it first started, it starts off quite slow.
Yeah.
I died inside because how that song started is pretty similar to how a lot of songs can just are in this list we did.
Yeah.
So I was like, I cannot do another art student bloody band. But when it kicked into the funky Macococo, and I was like,
Yeah, it's really catchy.
I was like, fuck for that. And I could have given it a 10 just based on the upbeatness alone. But yeah, it's a great song. It's catchy as hell. I think Tom's right. I really like this vocalist as well. He's got a very...
He's got charisma.
Yeah. I mean, do like his style.
The story behind this band, I think, is that I believe I read an interview somewhere. They decided they were going to form a band at art college, and none of them could play an instrument. And that's 2 years before this album comes out. And I think they said it in an interview for their second album, which isn't available on Spotify. Their first album is, their third album is, but their second one, which is absolutely brilliant, and I have on record, isn't available on Spotify, which is a travesty. But yeah, it's
And another reason why you should move to Apple Music.
It's their second album on Apple Music. You'll have to check this for me.
I'll check and see.
Let's find out. Let's have a platform off, guys.
Yeah, so it's their second album's called Harmonies for the Haunted.
It's probably not on Apple Music either.
It's not on Apple Music.
No, it's
Harmonies video on albums. What we got? Oh no, I really wanted Napster to win one then.
Yeah, so it's not on Apple Music or Napster, which means it doesn't exist. And Tom is lying.
But I'm not lying. It definitely exists.
What are you lying for?
I own the record.
That's
What are you lying
It
for?
isn't big and it's not clever, Tom.
yeah. Did you record it in your bedroom and write Stellar Star on it?
No, it's actually a very good album. I thoroughly recommend it. But yeah, I can't believe it's not on Spotify.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having a crush on a girl and discovering this song now, which sounds weird. Because I scored this one at an 8.6.
There's definitely a tank rolling over the hill the way this is going.
I really like this. I've got in my notes here that it sounds like it reminds me of Roxy Music a lot.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of glam feel to it. And
Yeah.
it's really catchy. There's really nice hi-hat playing in the intro, which I liked, which did separate it slightly from some of the similar intros that Al mentioned. There's a kind of hypnotic bass kick, double track female vocals that sounds really cool clashing together, an incredible guitar tone, and then that I wasn't sure it was going to go that way, but it does. The groove kicks in, and as I said here, it reminds me of Roxy Music at that point. There's a really kicking guitar solo in it, and it has a nice delay effect on the guitar as well. Yeah, it's got a bit of everything from indie rock, bit of energy to it. I found this a really enjoyable song.
I think it's incredible. It's right up my street. It hits all of my indie rock fucking like thing. It's everything I like about music in that song.
Well,
It's
that's
catchy.
strange because you scored it high, Tom scored it high, and Dan scored it high, and I did. So how come this isn't in the top 5?
I am the
Should be.
tanker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly fussed. It was all right.
Sir Nose devoid of funk over here, showing his true colours again. You scored it a 5, Jim.
Yeah, it was all right. I probably would have given it a 6 if it wasn't for the. I didn't care for the chorus.
That was the best bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I didn't like the vocal melody in the chorus, so it went down to a 5. But I wasn't hugely fussed about any of it.
Non-married Jim would have given this a 7.
Just a bit too middle of the road indie for me.
Fair enough, yeah. It's just the epitome of a particular sound. If you don't dig that sound, you're not going to like it, are you?
I saw them live and they
Oh.
were fucking incredible. Yeah, I saw them. They were supporting Head Swim, who are a massive favourite band of mine. Tom may have heard of them, but I don't know. But yeah, they were incredible. They reminded me of a band from the 80s called The Wedding Present,
Yes.
who were like just an amazing indie rock band. And they tick all my boxes, man. The whole indie thing. I fucking love it. I'm glad it's up there.
I'm just imagining that Whittle's never heard of the Wedding Present. It's just
No, I have.
yeah, it sounds like the Wedding Present. Yes.
I believe the wedding
I
present
agree.
the wedding present were actually nominated by Tom, I believe, on our 1991 episode.
They were
Yes,
indeed.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
they were indeed.
So
Yeah.
take your alternative facts and suck it, Jim. Right. In 11th place, this is one of Martyn's choices, and this one scored 40.6 points. These are Manchester prog post-rockers, and the lead singer of the band was actually featured in our 2020 Album of the Year list, and the guy's name is Mike Venart.
He's now the touring guitarist for Biffy Clyro. He's just in a new band with the singer for Biffy Clyro, Simon Neil, called Empire State Bastard, who are touring this summer, and I'm seeing them.
I wonder if I lip-synced that correctly. Thanks for doing my job there, Tom.
Have we actually said what it is yet?
Dan, you best tell them what it is.
This is Catalyst by Oceanside from the album FRS.
I know this is my pick, but I'm going to leave this one to Tom. Go for
I
it, Tom.
love this band. I love it.
Why is this song so good?
Mike Venart has this ability, and he does it on his solo records as well, to put catchy choruses over insane time signatures. So this song is in 7s. The riff is fucking massive. His vocal is great. Yeah, that's all you really need to know about it, isn't it, really? The riff's massive, vocal's great. I absolutely love this song. It's really hard to put into words. This album came out in 2003, so I was into Areogram from their 2001 album. They became my favourite band in 2003, but Oceanside and Areogram were like these two bands that were being pushed in the sort of alternative press, and I got Oceanside's first album in 2003, and it blew my mind because it was almost like listening to... There's a bit of a Pearl Jam-esque drawl in his vocal at times, which I normally don't like, but when he does it, I do. And there's a bit of... It's clever. There's a bit of a new metal tone on this album, which disappears on their later records when they go more down the post-rock route. But it was clever. It was musically interesting, and he made it commercial. It's just a brilliant track. It's straight...
But dude, those fucking guitars, man.
Oh.
So
the way
heavy,
the guitars
so
interplay
fucking
is
nice.
so heavy. Yeah. I can't believe you nearly nominated
beautiful.
the wrong song from this album.
The song I was going to nominate was the first song I ever heard from Oceanside, and I heard it
Yeah.
being described as if Massive Attack met the Deftones.
All This Could Be Yours, which is the track after this on the album.
I don't know, man. The fucking guitars are so good. They're so good. So heavy, so dense. It's almost like a guitar tone that you can fucking sink your teeth into. I actually want to write a song like that in our band. It would be so fucking cool.
It is so cool in the intro, this song, though. Like the hard pan
pans,
guitars.
yeah.
So I scored this one as 7.6. I think it's strong. I've got here that it's big, it's roomy, It's got interesting drums, interesting timing. It's very grungy. I picked up on the vocal grunge tone that he has. Excellent guitar tone throughout. There's almost it's a very melodic vocal performance. It's almost like a pop performance, which I didn't really expect. So it takes you by surprise. It's a little bit more accessible than you would think. There's really gentle harmonies in there. It creates a lot of space between the front end and the rhythm section. And then you bring back that guitar in to fill that space. It's an accomplished song.
It's all about the guitars for me. The guitars are so...
The verse guitars are very like 90s Radiohead, aren't they, really?
Yes, they are. Yeah, perfect.
This didn't score particularly lowly from anybody. The lowest was Al. You gave it a 6, which is still quite a good score. And Jim, you gave it a 7. What are you two thinking on this one?
I thought I'd given it more than 7, but maybe I did only give it a 7. Moment of madness.
That's what I've got here.
To be fair, I might have given it one higher as well, but I was listening to it just then. I was like, oh, it's actually pretty good. I don't know. It's just, I think it's because it was going to get a 7 before. 7's good, I think.
Yeah,
it is.
7's
6 is okay. So I was going to give it a 7 for good. I think it's pretty good. But I think once it went down to the verses, all the riffage just died down. And for me, I was just like, just keep there. Just keep heavy, you bastards. We don't need dynamics. Who cares?
Oh, see, I like the space.
We don't need to let it space. The best bit's that riff. Just keep doing more like that riff. If you can't do it, loads of bands do that. Just do that.
See, if you want to listen to a song where they do keep the riffage going the whole way through, they do a track called Amputee off this album. But for me, the lyrics on that song are a little bit problematic, so I couldn't possibly nominate it.
Fair enough.
Because I think the chorus lyrics, you could be an amputee, it wouldn't matter all that much, it wouldn't mean that much to me, which I think is him singing to a woman, I'd love you even if you didn't have arms or legs, but that's like a bit...
Is this a sound enough message?
If I'm being
I guess
100%
it's a sound
honest,
message.
It's
I
not
think
ableist.
This is a bit of a deal breaker for me.
Oh, here we go.
I don't think I can do it.
I just find it weird that somebody would write that in a song. That's what I mean, rather than the message being wrong.
I also love how you were like, I didn't nominate this song because the lyrical content is inappropriate, and then just proceeded to read the lyrics anyway.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say inappropriate, I said problematic.
I'd have probably given it higher. And I'm been on Alex's side about the verses. Like, I get let's have a big chorus and a little verse, but you could have had a slightly You've had a slightly
Big
less.
chorus, little verse. Love it.
Could have
Could have
slightly,
just brought it
like,
in a
if
bit
the
more.
chorus was here and the verse was here instead of here. Just bring it up a bit.
That there is a perfect way of describing the issue of this song, I think.
Yeah, and this is exactly why we moved to YouTube. So
Yeah, so anyone listening to the podcast, I was having one hand at a particular height.
James uses his hands to keep talking, James. I'm doing the
I had
caption.
my hand at a particular
James
height.
is raising his hand
And when
to
I said
a
that the
point
verse
on the
was
screen,
here,
which is quite
it was
high.
at a lower
James
position
is now
than it
raising
was
his other
when I
hand
raised it higher,
to a point on the screen, which is
at a
quite
point it shouldn't
slightly
be
less
in
high.
the verse. I hope that's now clear for everyone.
Jim
Very
hopes this
clear.
is now clear for everyone. Top 10, guys. In 10th position. Jim, this is your first appearance on tonight's
Hooray! I'm the entire top 10, I'm sure.
list. We're going slightly away from Manchester to Liverpool, where the Stag Do was. There's a theme coming up here, I think, with these nominations.
Can I make a prediction before we go on? So there's like loads of James's songs I absolutely love, and there's a few which I'm not that on board with, but I know for a fact everyone else will be. So if it's one of the ones I don't like, I'm going to be really irritated because he has like 12 that
It's one of the ones that you do because I only nominated one band from Liverpool.
Yeah.
And that band, they are an English rock band formed in 1990. They actually formed as a doom metal band and supported Cannibal Corpse back in the Chris Barnes years of Cannibal Corpse, not the Corpse Grinder years, for those of you on this podcast keeping score on Cannibal Corpse. This band, though, is Liverpudlian band Anathema, and the song is the wonderfully named Pulled Under at 2,000 meters a second.
That's really quick.
It is. There's some speed on that. James, this is a 10 from you. Talk us through a bit about this one.
This is... I got into Anathema because I was into my death doom metal.
Yes.
And I think it might be the second album when they started going a bit more kind of rocky rather than death doom, but this is probably the heaviest track on the album. And there were a few candidates for nominating, and like when I was listening through the album and I got to this one, I was like, no, this is the one. Everyone will love this song. It's just like It's very cool. Like the intro is just like super cool, and then it properly kicks in. Yeah, it's just fast and fun, and everyone likes it.
You would be correct, because the lowest score for this one was a 7. That came from Martyn. I actually scored this second highest. I scored this a 9. I think this is excellent. It's really deep. It's atmospheric. I like the kind of, it's almost like spoken word poetry with these giant guitar stabs on it, which I love. When the riff kicks in, it takes a while, but I think it's well earned in terms of the amount of time it takes to build to it. I think it's one of the better examples of alternative rock slash, I know, emo. I know that it's a dirty word, but
It's not like emo at all.
it reminds me of that kind of vocal style from the time. I do think that the production is a little bit thin on the vocals, which is the only thing I marked it down for. But I genuinely, I love the vocals. I love the guitar. I think it builds a great atmosphere, and I thought it's a stellar song.
I gave this song an 8. I think the thing for me with Anathema, I've seen them live at least once. I'm trying to remember. Definitely once. They played Arctangent a few years ago. And I think the thing I find, I really like the band musically. And musically at this point, they were in the middle of doing a lineup swap with My Dying Bride and Cradle of Filth, and all the band members were moving around. I think my problem is that his sung vocal on this I find really annoying. But the thing with Anathema is that over time, his vocal, his clean vocal, has got really good now. But the band have got worse. They're not as heavy. I like this band so I think for me, I've never found the band truly clicked. I think the production on this is a little bit thin, and I think over time their production got better and his vocals got better. But I don't think they ever were really as heavy as this. But no, it's still great. I should say I still gave it an 8, which is 8 for great. I still really like it.
It rhymes.
And it's I think my opening note goes, oh my God, it's pretentious, but then everything after their album Judgment in '99 is exactly what this is exactly what we'd expect. Because it is. The lyrics are so pretentious.
It is a little bit.
But that is what we expect from this band, and we do let them get away with it. And yeah, I do really like this album in general. I've listened to a lot of Anathema, mostly because James used to force me.
Oh God, I've listened to so much Anathema as well because
I somehow managed to escape that.
I remember once having a rant to James about how when they went through their progressive rock phase, once they got past the metal, I was like, look, every song's the same. Start, quiet, skip to the end, loud, next. Every goddamn song. It's just one giant build into a heavy bit. It drove me nuts.
Yeah. It was, used to, round at your parents' house, it was either Anathema or My Dying Bride. Basically, that was what was on all the time.
I've seen the My Dying Bride DVD like 3 times.
I've seen it at least once. I've seen it once, maybe twice.
I was going to give this a 10, but I thought it lost momentum around the middle, but then got it back. But I'm giving it a 9 because it couldn't. I honestly think this might be my favorite first 3 minutes of music I've listened to in years. I love the vocal pattern at the start when it's building into it, and I love how it kicks in, and it always feels like it's driving forward. You know what I mean? It's always it's got such a drive.
2,000 meters a second.
Exactly, at least 2,000 meters a second. I just really liked it. It's just the whole time it could have been longer for me. I could have literally listened to him doing the vocal pattern and the riff for just 10 minutes, and I'd still been nodding my head. This is exact sort of rock music I like to listen to when it's just there's no faffing, just boom, just flying through it. It's class. I just love it. Absolutely loved it. I should have given it a 10 really. Now I'm talking about too late now.
Martyn, for a little bit of balance, you scored this one a 7.0, or 7, as it's commonly known. Tell us a bit about your scoring for this one.
Yeah, it's very well played, excellently executed piece of music. But I think at the time I was listening to it, I just wasn't in the mood for really heavy stuff. And I think if I was in the mood for it, I probably would have scored it a lot higher. I was just trying to think about the musicianship behind it. And it is exemplary. It's like spot on. It's absolutely incredible. But yeah, I just wasn't in the mood for listening to a lot of heavy stuff at the time.
I mean, 7's a good score. It's like
Yeah.
I scored it at 7 for a good reason. It's an amazing piece of music. It really is. I just think, I remember back when I was like 16, 17 years old, I listened to a lot of Megadeth and Metallica and Anthrax and a lot of the old thrash bands and stuff. And I remember really loving it, but not really emotionally engaging with it, but just loving the technicality, really loving the whole thing of like musicians who are fucking amazing at what they do, but just not really connecting emotionally. That's why grunge hit me so well, because it was a mixture of all of that. And this is the same thing. I know it's a fucking incredible piece of music, but I just didn't emotionally tie in with how I was feeling
everyone
at the
has
time.
to have that. Any song, the amount of scores we've all given, probably because we objectively know it's quite good, so we didn't completely tank it. But you just don't, if you don't have an emotional connection to a song.
Yeah, that's when you get that's where I'm getting my 6s and my 7s.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
They're all alright songs. I see why people like them because it hits them in a certain way. But if it doesn't, just go, that's all right, 6.
Yeah.
But man, musically, it's pretty much perfect. I would love to be able to play that, and I never will. But I remember when I first started playing guitar, I wanted to be able to play like that, and it's a fucking lovely thing to hear. It's just really nice to be able to enjoy such exemplary musicianship just on a purely technical level. That's where it's at with me. But it's still got a high score because of how brilliantly it was played.
I wonder what's in 9th place.
Let's find out.
Hey! In 9th place is one of Martyn's picks. Now, with this one, there's a little bit of a story that I got to tell here, because in 1986, there was a band called Talking Heads. Talking Heads, in 1986, they released an album called True Stories. Now, one of the songs on True Stories has a 2-word title for a particular song on this album. And 17 years later, no one would understand how much of an effect that particular song title would have on music, because this band is an English band that was named after that particular track. This particular song is produced by Nigel Godrich, and if you haven't figured out already, Martyn's chomping at the bit for 3 years to talk about this band, because it's the first time we've actually talked about one of their individual songs. From their album Hail to the Thief, the song has 2 titles, one of which is The Bony King of Nowhere, but it's more commonly known as They're There. Martyn, it's time to talk about Radiohead.
It's time to talk about Radiohead. Literally the greatest band of all time.
Here we go. Get warm, get comfy. It's going to be a long one.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one. No, it's not going to be a long one. I just need to say the word Radiohead, and that's all you need to know. They are literally the greatest band of all time. In a decade or so, people will be talking about Radiohead in the same way that we talk about the Beatles.
I think they're already there. In a lot of respects, they are critical darlings. And Hail to the Thief is not one of their more critically acclaimed albums.
No, other than Pablo Honey, it's my least favourite of their albums. But They're There, what a song. It's just incredible, just absolutely beautiful in every sense of the word.
It's my second favourite track on the album, because I would have put 2 + 2 = 5 above this one.
That's a good.
We spoke about this, Tom, didn't we?
Yeah,
And we both agreed that is also like up there. But yeah, it's Radiohead. There's not really anything I could say that could describe what it's like to just listen to Radiohead. Just fucking listen to them, man.
Hail to the Thief got a lot of critical attention before it came out. It was everywhere because I think OK Compute, so the Bends and OK Compute, the Bends particularly launched Radiohead into the stratosphere, and they got a lot of MTV play with the single where the video's in that sepia. And then they released OK Computer, which if you made a top 100 albums of all time and didn't put OK Computer on it,
let's face it, OK Computer is the greatest album of all time.
You'd struggle to not put that in a top 100 list.
Yeah.
No matter what your taste in music.
I'd say top 50. I'd narrow it further.
Yeah, I'd say top 1.
But then Kid A came out, which alienated a lot of their fan base when Kid A came. I prefer OK Computer to Kid A, absolutely. Because I bought
Yeah, I
OK
agree.
Computer when
I
it
don't
came
know.
out, and I didn't fall in love with Kid A. And then they released Amnesiac, which is essentially a B-sides album.
Yeah.
It is.
That's why they released the Kid Amnesiac album, because it is basically
They're almost
from the
one
same
project.
sessions.
They recorded in the same sessions. And then they were talking, Tom York was talking in interviews about how they were going back to the sound of OK Computer on this record. And they don't completely, but
No.
on this track and 2 + 2 = 5, they get pretty close to it. And it did really feel like when this came out as a single, this felt like a return to form. You've got the interesting guitar chords, you've got Tom York's distinctive vocal. It's not processed to within an inch of its life, everything they did on Amnesiac was, and it feels, this album, many of the tracks in this album feel like Radiohead playing like a band again. It feels much more raw and performed, as if they could perform it live, whereas apart from maybe Pyramid Song and Amnesiac, what else can they perform live? Oh, there's one other track that I can't remember the name of, but there's 2 tracks on that they could perform live, and the rest of it is not really possible. Whereas this felt like Radiohead, the rock band, coming back.
Yeah.
It's not as good as OK Computer, but that's like saying Rubber Soul's not as good as Revolver. No, it's like you're comparing 2 great albums from a band's back catalogue. It's still an amazing album, and this has that. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's their chorus just hits me really nicely.
This is a period where there's a lot of British indie bands going in different directions. This is a period where Muse have got, I think this is the year that they released Absolution, which doesn't feature in our list tonight. Likewise, Coldplay had a sudden rush of blood to the head, which none of the tracks feature from. And there's fine margins with this. It's hard to select 15 songs, but if you had to pick a song from a band that are at their peak in that time, Radiohead, this is, to pluck a term from my technical lexicon, this is them going full ham. Because I think my notes here, this is a massive compliment. When you talk about best albums of all time, I've written in my notes here that this sounds like it could have been on Remain in Light by Talking Heads, who they got their name from. And there are not many songs from bands in the 2000s that I think would on such a record, which I love so much. So that's a massive compliment from me. It's almost like a tribal rhythm, like a polyrhythm. It's not, but it gives that aesthetic to me. It's got a harmonic bass line that I really like. Strong playing from Johnny Greenwood. Tom York, he sounds amazing. The production is absolutely staggering. And what I love about it is because it sounds so great, but then it closes out with one of their heaviest bits from any of their 2000s records. It sounds more like a return to OK Computer, as you say, or even the Bends.
It's a classic Johnny Greenwood moment. I think the whole song is this.
It's one of my favourite Radiohead songs.
You see them play it live. Johnny Greenwood and Ed O'Brien are playing the fucking tom-toms to start with that drum pattern. And it's like, he's not even playing guitar to start with. Yeah, it's fucking beautiful. Radiohead literally are the greatest band of all time. And I will fight anyone to the death. I will die on that hill.
This got pretty high scores all around. Al, you gave this an 8.
Yeah, I like Radiohead, and this is a pretty good Radiohead song. I'd never actually heard this album. One thing I remember about this album, it's the first album I remember, though for me it was the first one I'd heard doing it, where they didn't sell this one. They didn't just have a price in the CD shop for this.
No, they did. It was the album after this, in Rainbows, which is the one
you can pick your price. Yeah, that's the one.
I just never. I really have always been one of those bands where I've never pursued listening to them. I first got introduced to them because I bought Kid A, and I really like Kid A, and then I've always gone back. But because Kid A was so much more experimental, I'd never loved their full albums the ones previously. I think because I already had an expectation it would be a bit weirder. But I've always liked all of the stuff I have listened to, but this is just a great one. I like the vocals on it. I like the music behind it. It's a good song. If you want a Radiohead song, this is a good example of one. That's all you need, really.
Jim, you scored this one a 6.
It's pretty good. The best thing, or the thing that I like the most that Radiohead have ever done is the Bends. And I'm always disappointed that things aren't as good as the Bends every time I listen to any other Radiohead album. And so where this song goes, like the end of it is reminiscent of that sort of style. I really like the end. And I really, Tom York's voice is Tom York's voice. So it's great on everything pretty much. And it's as it is on this album, or this song rather. But yeah, it's good. It's okay.
Computer.
It's not what I like about the Radiohead that I like.
That scored a total then of 41.2, and scoring 41.3 is our next 8th placed song. This one is one of Tom's picks, and this is another debut studio album, so a lot of debut albums with some very strong tracks. This one is a Rick Rubin production and is also produced by one of the band members, Omar Rodriguez Lopez. The other half of the band is Cedric Bixler-Zavala. This is the American progressive rock band, the Mars Volta, and the song itself is called Inertiatic ESP. A wonderful song.
Yeah, I only nominated it because none of you guys did, and it needed to be on the list.
Yeah, it was on my shortlist as well.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that I think, personally, that Mars Volta's first album is the best album they made. I like their second one. I know lots of people talk about the album they released last year as being really good, but I think I was a big fan of At the Drive-In. And I think, for me, I like them when they've got a bit of fire.
It was a very poppy record last year, wasn't it?
And I don't love that. So I think for me, I love At the Drive-In, and this is the closest they got to getting back there while adding an experimental edge that wasn't present on their At the Drive-In stuff. The way he's using his voice is just superb.
It's almost like another guitar.
Yeah, it is. And the guitar works all over the place. The vocal melodies are insane. Yeah, it had to be on this list. And if I didn't nominate it, no one else had. So it had to go on.
I would have nominated it, definitely. But I ran out of space. But man, you're dead right. It's pure insanity in rock music form.
Yeah, but strangely catchy as well. I'm Lost, the refrain of it, it sticks in your head. It's really catchy. Yeah. It shouldn't be that catchy for a progressive rock song.
No.
It doesn't sound like it, but it's almost like progressive rock of the era of Supertramp. It's vocal figure. I know instrumentally it doesn't carry anything like that vibe, but it's almost like they built a pop song and then almost expanded it beyond its logical conclusion to form something really beautiful. It's also really chaotic and really raw, and is a really high intensity thrill ride all the way through. It's remarkable.
It doesn't let up, does it?
No.
It doesn't let up. It's straight away, all the way through, just intense insanity constantly, and fucking love that about music.
I listened to this song. I think I discovered it about 5 years ago, and I listened to it. It was around about the time I was also listening to Mr. Bungle and other records like that, exploring 2000s, not post rock but progressive rock. And at first, I just couldn't keep up with it. And I was like, what is this? It just passed me by. Because it's not a long song either. And I was like, I didn't really digest it properly. And I ignored it for about 2 years. And then I went back to it. And I've also listened to, I think is it Francis the Mute, the second album?
Yeah, my favourite album.
Yeah, which is really good. When I liked that, I then gave the first album another go. And I think I prefer it slightly. And this is, for me, one of the standouts. But I did like their album from last year as well.
I really like At the Drive. I do really like At the Drive-In.
If you don't like At the Drive-In, there's something wrong with you.
I remember actually when it first came out being quite a little disappointed with the album. I thought it was quite good, but it was. I personally think this song is easily the strongest on the album.
Yeah,
but I think it's also because this is the one song on the album which could be called a normal constructed song. The other ones are very progressive and just out there. And sometimes I think a bit like Tom said, they need to reel themselves back in be a bit more traditionally rock sometimes. But then again, they did Francis to Mute. That's my favourite in a way. It went completely mental on that one. That was really good. But yeah, it's just a great song. Like, as you said, the high notes he can hit when he sings. He's such a good vocalist, and I just really like the Mars Volta, really. The funny thing is about the Mars Volta is I saw them live, and they talk about a prog band, right? Because I watched them, and they started with a song, and I'm like, okay, I know the song. And then they just played about 20 minutes of other stuff, and I didn't recognise any of it. And I was like, have I just... Is there like 3 albums I just don't know about or something?
There are a lot of albums you don't know about. They released hundreds of them.
No, I know they have now, but at the time I saw them, and then they had 2 albums, I think. But I remember them playing with, I think it might have been this song actually. They're just starting off and then just playing 20 minutes. And then I was like, oh, there must be those songs I don't know. And then it came back to the end of the song. And it literally wasted half a bloody set just jamming over an existing song for 20 minutes. I was absolutely furious. I was like, you're going to fit in like 3 songs. Like, dicks. But a very good live, actually. Yeah, I'd recommend it. But yeah, this song's good. I like Mars Volta, and
Married life has made you miserable, Jim.
I don't know. I've just looked at what I've scored. Why did I score it a 6? I love this song.
You bastard.
I did think that was low. You've got
It's
too
great.
caught up in the IGN thing. I just went with what I felt was right. Don't be beholden to a corporate structure.
Six
Fight
is
the power.
okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
exactly.
this is not an okay song. It's a way
this
better
is what
song.
annoys me about the scoring system. I'm always there going, really thinking about it. Like, it's not that good. I'm not that into it. Oh, 4. Okay, give it a 4. That seems low. You guys just, fuck it, shit, -4.
Yeah, you can still do that.
Even based on the IGN system, I should be giving it an 8 or a 9.
Yeah,
Maybe an 8.
you should,
No, I gave it a 6 because
because you're an
must
idiot.
have been
So why do
having
you think
a
the song was
brain
okay then, James?
Yeah, tell me
Um,
what you don't like about this song.
But yeah, Mars Volta, they're a band. I have no way of justifying the score I've given because I don't believe I should have given it that score.
A 7 we would have accepted, but 6. Ooh.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure whether to just go wah 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 or insert the sound effect. So we'll try both and see how it goes.
Yeah, just do both. Don't pick the best one. Just do both.
They're just fucking insane. Just insane band. Like, the level of musicianship is beyond. With
While
that
taking
band.
that many drugs.
Yeah, they're just, man, Cedric Bixler is a massive influence on me. I love that whole, like, wild abandon thing that he does on guitar.
You mean Omar Rodriguez?
Yeah, it's the other
Yeah,
one.
I meant Omar.
Cedric's the singer.
Cedric's a singer, yeah. But even though Cedric he uses like effects pedals on his voice and stuff,
Yeah.
it's fucking great.
One final thing to add to this song is that for years, because the album is called Deloused in the Comatorium, I did think that the vocal was him just singing, "Now I'm loused." So he's been deloused, but now he's loused. So when it was revealed that it's just "I'm lost," I felt a little bit embarrassed there. So yeah, it's not "Now I'm loused," and I'm
That
now
is close.
disappointed that when you said you saw them live and they were into their prog stuff, I was thinking Spinal Tap, and they came out with knit lotion on their hair, and they just sat in chairs for 20 minutes just being deloused.
I'm not
Anyway.
going to be able to unhear a song. That's just,
Yeah, I'm sorry, listeners. I have ruined the Mars Volta for you all. I think it's still good, though. Even if you think he is singing "Now I'm loused," at least he's being hospitable
I
to
mean,
his
it makes
parasites.
sense. His hair's really big. You can fit a lot of lice in that.
He probably is loused.
There's one other nomination with an even bigger hair.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
of course, yes.
Up in 7th position, bloody hell, it's another one of Tom's picks. Because, and this is a band that have been featured before at the end of last year, because this is, again, Tom's in dreamland here, because this is Tom's favourite band. It's Areogram, the Scottish alternative rockers. This is from the album that Tom's mentioned many times, Sleep and Release, because this is the track No Really, Everything's Fine by Areogram.
So you may want to put in a timestamp here because Tom's going to gush now for the next 15 minutes.
Areogram are my favourite band. They can't come up that often because they only made 4 albums if you include Seclusion. Sleep and Release is my favourite album they made. Picking what track off this album to nominate was really hard. This album's one of the reasons 2003 is my favourite year for music. This album is superb. It flows really well as an overall album. They cover a lot of different ground. They were marketed in with bands like, when this album came out, there was a real big sort of label push. They were put in with new metal. and
They're not new
They're
metal.
not new metal at all. They're a very clever band who like heavy guitars. And it's really hard to talk about an individual track from this album. I absolutely love this track. The intro riff is absolutely crushing. I think the thing that makes this band for me, though, is the way Martyn Scott plays drums, because he very rarely just plays a backbeat. He plays drums like an orchestral instrument all the time. You listen to the tuning on his cymbals in the intro, it's not normal. as Al will probably agree. And then Craig B's voice is fantastic. I think I picked this song because it's probably the most accessible, because it's got a great chorus and it's got heavy sections in it, and I love it. And they're the best. They're my favourite band, and I'm glad they're on another episode. That's all I need to say. Thank you very much. I can retire now.
Those guitars, though, man. Those fucking guitars. Heavy.
What they play is so simple. It's just power chords in drop D. Yeah. So beautiful.
Now, I actually scored
beautiful.
this the weakest of everyone. I do like Areogram, and I did score a 6.8, which isn't a low score. I think it's way above average. It's just not, for me, it's not excellent. I think maybe because I was comparing it to Post-Tour Prejudgment.
Which is a better single.
Which is it's a better song. And I've written in this, I was like, it's not quite as massive in scope as their later stuff, and I think that's dragged it down for me. It's a nice groove. There's some really nice distorted guitar breakdowns in it. I did say, and I think this is just trolling, but the production does sound a little bit compressed. So I do think that they could have done with getting Steve Albini on this.
Fuck you.
Because I actually think it would benefit from a in utero kind of production style. But as I say, I think I was just trying to push some buttons there. It's got a really nice time signature change in it at 250. There's a nice build up of crescendo guitar. That's the highlight of the song. It really digs under your skin. Like most Aerogram stuff does, but I just don't think it's quite as powerful as the other stuff that I've heard.
No, it's not as powerful as Postal Prejudgment. The thing this band do beautifully, and what you're talking about the time change, is they write most of their songs in sixes, and the great thing about when you use a six is you can divide it into 2 3s or 3 2s, and they do that really well. The only other thing I had in my notes is that his bass guitar tone is fucking massive.
Yeah.
And I love it. Of all my picks, this is not one that I expected to make the top 15, so I'm happy.
It's
not even my highest score.
No.
And they're my favourite band.
So a couple of 9s in there. Both Jim and Martyn, you both scored it a 9. And Al, you scored it second lowest with 7.
Yes, I do quite like the song. My only issue is, and it really did drag it out for me, it could have been an 8 or maybe a 9, is that at 3 minutes 48, I just looked it up then, there is a massive build-up, my broken bones, or it was building up, and then nothing. And I was like, what an absolute premature ejaculation of a fucking mistake. It's so awful. I was just like, why did it go like that? And the problem is it never gets the momentum back. It's just gone.
It doesn't really resolve. The build-up itself is the highlight for me.
Yeah, but I love the build-up. I was really ready. Even if it just went back to the main riff.
It does leave you with blue balls, though, a little bit.
Yeah, proper blue balls.
I love the fact they had the balls to do that, though. I think that's brilliant.
But if you want to make the song better, you do that. Because what's the point of building to just nothing?
It does come back to that really heavy riff at the end. They drop down and they build it back up quickly.
That's the problem. It builds down to nothing, and then you're like, oh god damn, and then it just waffles about it like with a bit of low energy, and then it just goes back into the main riff. And you're like, the main riff's good, but we could have really nailed it about a minute ago. You guys really ruined it for yourselves with that.
Fair enough.
But that's the only thing. Other than that, it's a great song. I like the main riff. I just think it's cool. His vocals are really good, and very good.
I completely agree with, not with Alex, with Tom.
I had to ask you which song to pick off this album.
I haven't listened to this album for a few years now, and I went back to listen to the whole thing, and it's such a good album. Absolutely fantastic. And this is by far from the best song on this album.
I haven't listened to Sleeping Police.
Oh, you need to. It's this Aerogram are an album band, not a singles band.
I get that as I listen to them more.
Yeah. It's not the best track off the album, but it was the one most likely to score well, as James agreed with me when we had this discussion.
Martyn, your thoughts on this one?
Just love the guitars, man. The fucking guitars are just so intense and so up my street. I like I keep saying to Tom, I want to do more of this kind of stuff in my band. I could play dense guitar like that all day long and never get bored. It's so beautiful.
It is fantastic.
So fucking like you can swim in it.
It's actually joint 6th because the song above in 6th place has the same score. This is one of Al's picks from the only studio release by American electronic duo The Postal Service.
All right.
The album's called Give Up, and the song that Al has selected from this is called Sleeping In. They were essentially a supergroup that was formed from Ben Gibbard from Def Cab for Cutie and musician Jimmy Tamborello, who also records under Duntel. And yeah, I think this is fantastic. Al.
You already told me more than I know about the Post Service. I think I heard the song. I think it might have just been like a random Spotify recommendation. You just hit a radio and it just does random songs. I just really like the song. I don't use the word too often, but I think it's a very beautiful song. It's very nice and low key. It's melancholic, and I just find the lyrics quite nicely depressing, and I just really like it. I just find it just very pleasant song. I've heard it a million times. I never get bored of it, and I really should listen to more of their stuff. This is the only
You
song.
really should.
Yeah.
You really should, because I really wanted to nominate the Postal Service, but I had a lot on my shortlist, and you nominated this, and I was like, okay, I won't nominate them. There are 3 or 4 10 out of 10 tracks on this album, and this isn't one of them.
From this album, I really like Such Great Heights.
Such Great Heights. We Will Become Silhouettes. The District Sleeps Alone Tonight.
I also like This Place is a Prison as well. I checked out the whole album and it's fantastic.
I loved it. The album is brilliant.
If you like that meld between electronica and indie, this will be your jam.
I spent ages trying to work out which song to nominate. And it was just like between 5 or 6 songs. Which one do I nominate? I have no idea. And those 5 and 6 didn't include this one. Alex nominated it, and
Such Great Heights would have been the one for me, I think. I'm glad somebody nominated the Postal Service, and I'm glad they made the top 15 because they are brilliant. I was going to say it shows the softer side to Ben Gibbard, but he sings in Def Cab for Cutie, which is all softer side.
He had a big popular album with Def Cab for Cutie this year as well, Transit.
Which is a fantastic album.
Which is also great.
I struggled to not put that in my 15, although I think one of their later albums, Plans by Death Cab for Cutie, has the song Marching Bands of Manhattan on it, which is one of my favourite songs. And it's total cheese, though. It's not high art. I just absolutely love it because it's beautiful. It's got a big chorus. But I'm really glad the Postal Service made the list.
Yeah,
I've listened to that album thousands of times. I bought it when it came out, and Ben Gibbard's vocal is brilliant. Mm-hmm. What I love about this album, I think the thing that is, because they recorded it by post, hence the name, the Postal Service. And I think what I love about it so much is that his vocal is often, he comes up with a melody and he puts it out there, and then the music's there, and they don't always match up. Through a lot of the album, he's singing in a completely different key to what's going on musically, but it still works because both the music and the vocal, because it's Duntel and Ben Gibbard, and I think Jenny Lewis from Ride O'Kiley appears on the album as well.
Yeah, about halfway through,
Yeah, and so with that, musically they've both got such a strong voice. This is their lane, and they're just going to plough their lane, and it doesn't matter what the other music's going to do because it will resolve again later. I have a real affinity for that ability to be able to write like that, I think, because musically, if I'm writing something, I can't do that. I can't put 2 disparate parts. I find it really hard to put 2 really disparate parts together, and they just do it effortlessly. And in this track, Sleeping In, you get about halfway through and he's got his chorus about sleeping in. You listen to the key that the synths are in, it's a completely different key to what he's singing in, and he just carries on and it resolves again. It's really cleverly done.
The lyrics are clever. It's quite wistful, but it's propelled by that nostalgic kind of synth bass. It's almost like an update of what New Order were doing around the time of Power, Corruption and Lies. And I know Martyn's a particular fan of that album.
Yes, I am.
Almost like a 2003 version of that. It is, and it's such a shame we only got this album from them. They re-released it 10 years later and went on tour, and there is there's a
live album.
Yeah, there's a deluxe edition of this with more tracks on it as well that was re-released, which I didn't check out. I just checked out the bass album, but I'm probably going to give him another go with the deluxe version because it's exceptional. Martyn, what are your thoughts on this one?
Everything Tom said.
Copy and paste.
This is how this episode's going to go, isn't it?
It really is.
Oh yeah.
I'm with stupid. There we go. And in 5th place, then, with 41.6 points, one of Jim's picks. This one's a bit of a surprise myself, purely based on the genre of it and how averse someone in this group is to that genre. But this is from another debut studio album by American ska punk band Streetlight Manifesto.
Oh, yeah.
From the album Everything Goes Numb, this is the opener, Everything Went Numb, and it's got a tango bit in it, which is awesome. It's one of the bigger departures that have made the top 15 from just indie rock. For me, it's got horns on it, which not many of these songs have had so far. It wasn't the only ska punk song on the list, and Less Than Jake, spoiler alert, doesn't finish above this. This is the best ska punk song on the list for most people, Martyn included. Martyn, you don't like ska punk, but even you scored this one relatively high in a 5. You didn't completely tank it, but
That's savage.
it's a Latin-infused ska punk song with lots of jazzy segues, fantastic horns, incredible drumming. I scored it an 8.3. The only thing that didn't score it higher than that for me was the vocals. I didn't really catch up with what he was saying. And a lot of songs like this, they're usually telling an interesting story, and it doesn't strike you as much as other songs in this vein for me. But I still think it's a great song. Jim?
Yeah, I mean the vocal delivery is so fast.
Yeah.
And it's faster on some other songs, like Point Counterpoint, the third track on this album. The album is amazing. If you like the song, then
yeah, okay.
The album's just I absolutely love it. It's probably my favourite ska punk album. But yeah, like his vocal delivery is just so fast.
I mean, did you have the problem that because I almost put this on mine in my top 15, but I listened to the album and I was like, I literally can't pick a best one because they're all similar but different enough to not be too samey, and it was so difficult because you literally just can't pick one.
I found it really hard to pick which song because the whole album's just like wall-to-wall bangers.
Yeah.
And like the intricacy of the horns, it's so much more interesting than most other ska punk bands.
Yeah.
And the musicianship in that horn section alone is just absolutely amazing.
It's far above Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake. It feels a lot more orchestrated than that. Almost jazzy.
Their drummer is really good as well.
Yeah, it was exceptional.
Really good. I think his playing is absolutely amazing. And this song is a complete pop punk ska classic. If you go to any rock night, you'll hear this. With the amount of punk bands I've been to see, and then when there's music playing before the bands come on, this always gets played. This is just one of those songs where even if you're not that big a fan of the genre, it's still everyone gives it free pass because it is that good. It's just like a way better Sublime, isn't it? Like way better. Not Sublime. You know, when you're like, well, faster anyway, which makes it better.
I didn't score this that highly, but it's good for what it is. But I just didn't.
For what it is, it's probably the best. I don't think there's a ska song that sums up this genre.
I think you're probably right. It's not a genre I love. I like the brass. I think my notes go, I'm not a big fan of ska punk, as everybody who's listened to this podcast knows. Mm-hmm. I really like the brass parts, but I really don't like the fact I can't understand the vocals.
Yeah, same problem I had.
The two things I really liked about the track are the changing pace. I think that's really clever. And that leads to it having a bit more of an interesting structure than a lot of ska punk.
But isn't this song goes like that bit? It almost sounds, I don't know, it reminds me of Madness almost a bit. I don't know why.
Jim hates Madness, so that's
yeah, don't say that out.
That's great. Is that he does? You can tell where some of the influences are.
They're in the ska genre, aren't they? So they're going to be influential if they come before, whether you like them or not. They have influenced the genre. Martyn, you're not the biggest fan of ska punk either.
No, I'm not. What Tom said.
Should we just have a sign instead? You can just go off and make your dinner
Yeah.
or something, saying what Tom said.
Next time you say that, I'm just going to record it and we'll have you as a soundboard next episode, I think.
I think you should edit in old podcasts. It's the best thing I've ever heard. Everyone.
No, we've gone past Radiohead, and
And you've switched off.
exactly. I've checked out by this point.
I'm concerned if it's above Radiohead, then the list is wrong.
He's creating a Twitter account so he can log in and be like, "You bastards! I hate all your opinions, and you've all got shit cardigans. Now fuck off."
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
that,
I've got a notification, guys. Oh, block. There we go. Yeah, cheers.
I can't stand ska punk. I cannot in any way connect with it at all. But then,
Yeah, all your best friends are metalheads.
yeah, exactly.
No, don't agree with him on this. He's referencing a ska punk song.
I'm a grunge dude. You know what I mean? I grew up around Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and all that.
And not bathing.
Yeah, and not bathing and having dreadlocks and stuff.
If they're not wearing unironed shirts, he's not interested.
Ska punk is literally the worst form of music of all time. It's horrible. It's just bad.
I feel
worse than
Martyn's
ska
score
punk.
was very generous, given what he's saying.
I appreciate the musicianship, though. I think that's why I didn't give it such a low score. Because I was like, the musicians are doing what they do really well, and I have to appreciate that. Even if it's a song I fucking hate, I will still appreciate the musicianship behind it.
Next up, in fourth place, and another one of Jim's picks. An interesting fact about all of our top 5 tonight, Jim has scored them all 10 out of 10. This, in fourth place with 42.2 points, is a song from the album Magnolia Electric Company, and this one is one of Martyn's favourites as well. This is Farewell Transmission by the band Songs of Higher, which is essentially the late Jason Molina. And this one is, it's Jim's pick, scored at 10, and so also did Martyn.
I gave it a strong 10 because that song fucking broke my heart, man.
This is on the final Songs of Higher album, and it's not the same as the rest of the Songs of Higher stuff that was released. So this is the transition to more country direction, which then ended up being
The Magnolia Electric
Company. And then they subsequently started releasing albums under that name, and they're all great. But this was the transition. This was recorded by Steve Albini, which Martyn is very effusive about.
And Tom Lesser.
Steve Albini is the anti-producer.
He also has very good politics on Twitter.
He does have very good politics on Twitter, I will give you that.
But yeah, I had a really hard time picking which song to nominate on this album because almost all of the album is fantastic.
So you just found the longest.
Yeah.
I hate to say, I believe I told you that this was the one to pick from the album when we were having this discussion.
Well, I said that I was down to 3 songs. You were just like, this one. So yeah, that's why I went with it. But yeah, it's such a brilliant song. This is the album opener. It sets the scene for the brilliance that you're in for. Jason Molina, his voice is phenomenal, his songwriting ability, and lyrically it's just really heartbreaking. And yeah,
I listened to this I almost reviewed it twice because the first time I heard it was just generally through the playlist going through, didn't really pay too much attention to it, and I thought, it's a nostalgic guitar line. It sounds a bit like the Eagles with a good vocal from Jason Molina. As I've listened to it more and more, it reminds me less of the Eagles. It's got that southern rock feel to it, but it reminds me more of early 70s Neil Young in places. It's quite long, but it earns that runtime because it's got a real tangible sense of build within it that doesn't just feel like build for build's sake. It's part of a more intricate process on the song. And as I listen to it more, I've really engaged with it in that way more. So I've scored it an 8.3 in the end. This is a grower, not a shower for me.
I find it interesting that you mentioned Neil Young because that was the first reference point that I got when listening to it. I was like, this is very Neil Young. And I'm a huge Neil Young fan, and I'm an obsessive Neil Young fan. And
yet it didn't appear on our Neil Young episode. Go and check that out. It's with Taylor Parks. It's back in the archives.
Yeah, and I regret not being on that because I fucking adore Neil Young. But it's that whole desert highway, Arizona Americana thing going on.
Yeah, another Americana one.
fucking love Americana so much. It just works for me so much. I want to thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for introducing me to Songs of Hire, because like that song fucking broke me. It literally broke me. I was in tears listening to it. I was like, my God, this is exactly what I like. It's fucking right up my street.
I remember when this album came out, and my first thought was that it sounded like a cross between Wilco and Modest Mouse. That was my
Exactly.
first thought
Yeah.
when it came out. And I like both of those things. That's not a criticism, I should add. Now, I know Modest Mouse went on to sound more electric, but remember that Modest Mouse in 2000 and Wilco released Yankee Hotel Foxtrot in 2002.
Which
It's
is a great album.
Yeah, it's like those albums,
Yeah,
not like what they what they turned into later. But yeah, this was peak. 2003 was like peak alt country, I think it's referred to as, because you had Rilo Kiley released albums in 2002 and 2004. Wilco did 2002, 2004. Calexico released a great album in 2003. I think the thing with alt country is it either hits you or it doesn't. Wilco, strangely, I really like Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, but I've never got it. My Morning Jacket are held up by many people as one of the greatest bands of the aughts or the noughties.
The aughts.
And
Sounds better.
And they are amazing, by the way.
But I've never got it. Whereas Conor Roberts doing Bright Eyes, I get that, and I'm all on board with that. So this, I am on board with. But yeah, I either get it or I don't. And I'll either give it a 3 or a 9 or an 8.9, in fact. So yeah, this was an 8.9.
General Sherman rolling over the hill.
Yeah, here it comes. Boom, boom, motherfuckers. Make room for Al's tank.
Oh, I tanked the shit out of this. This could have been number one. And I think I gave it a 5, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You bastard.
Oh, so amazingly dull. Fuck me. No, it wasn't that bad. It was all right. It was just I didn't think it deserved okay. For me, it was bang average. I wish I wasn't working whilst listening to these, because you guys are talking about how deep the lyrics are. I couldn't tell you what the lyrics are. For me, it seemed like just an averagey sort of country-esque rock song, and it just happened to be like 9 minutes long, and I just didn't really. I didn't, like you say, there's a natural progression. There was no progression, honestly. Just timestamp it. Go 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. It's all the exact same bloody levels. It's not really going anywhere. I'm just being devil's advocate. It's not that bad, but I don't know. I just found it a little boring, to be honest. I feel like it wasn't for me. I was talking to James about it actually, and he was like, "Oh, please give a better score, and I'll put one of your guys up higher."
Hang on. Have I unveiled a conspiracy here where you're all like, you're all on the take? Your scores could be bought. My scores are only offered with the utmost sincerity.
I did threaten him to make it lower if Foy is there.
My soul is completely pure on this, and I therefore have the third place pick for this evening, and it's called 42.7, and this is probably the most mainstream song on this list because it was a number one hit in the UK, and this is Danger!
Yeah.
High voltage! When we touch, when we kiss.
Oh my god, the way he pronounces all of his words is just hilarious. When we touch.
It's amazing. I've got here. This is such a melting pot of everything that was 2003 because you've got Jack White doing secret vocals on it. And Jack White was on this list but didn't quite make it. This is his highest appearance on the list. It's got an almost South Park exaggerated cartoon voice. And it's a mixture of garage rock and indie disco. The whole album,
Fire.
I bought this when it came out in 2003 off the back of this being such a weird single. And I've not really listened to the album as a whole for years, but I've heard this and I've heard Gay Bar. I also was a big fan of Dance Commander, which was the underrated single on that album.
That is a banger.
But this is just one of those that's just a tour de force of weirdness that stops everybody in its tracks a little bit when you hear it. And it can go one of two ways. You can listen to it in 20 years and go, what a load of piss that was. Or you, like this, you go, oh, I'm still on that vibe. Dick Valentine's just the right kind of saucy with it, that he doesn't go too far, that it's now weirdly problematic. It's still funny. It's still ironic. and it's great. The whole album from start to finish is actually a pretty tight listen, and this is really, for me, one of the best singles of the early 2000s.
It's quite easy to describe this song as unskippable. I can't imagine a mood or time or a mood you're in where you would want to skip this.
That opening hook is just a diddle-a-doop, diddle-a.
Yeah.
You're in. I'm in. I'm in. Sell me away.
Snare drum sounds amazing.
Yeah. Put me on a fire safety course, because, I'm all about that danger.
Yeah.
I put the dam in danger high voltage.
No.
There'll be a new host next week, guys.
When I first saw this on Kerrang, probably.
Oh, no.
It was on Kerrang as well.
Yeah.
It was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is amazing. It was just, you've got that old woman sat on a taxidermy deer or moose
with the
with, like,
flashing codpiece.
light up. Oh yeah, she's got light up breasts,
And
he's got a light up codpiece. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
it's set in like an old, not a haunted house, but like old school, like it's got Victorian aesthetic to it. It's so weird, but it all comes together to work so well. And I love it even more because they did it multiple times on the same album. I think they fell off around the time they did that cover of Radio Gaga a few years later. I think the joke had worn a bit thin by then. They're actually still going, and their albums, if you dig into them, they never stray far enough in the sound that you're not going to enjoy it. But this is their moment in the sun for me. And 2003's made a better year because this did well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's good, not great. I don't love it. I couldn't mark it down because it's catchy.
Just got
But
it at 7.5.
yeah, it's good. I don't love it in any way.
No, I'm with Tom on this. I don't love it, but it was indicative of that kind of sense of indie bands doing disco, which got really big around that time,
Yeah.
which I fucking absolutely welcome. It's like indie bands, they're listening to Bohannon and people like that, and just the danceability of it. It's just a fucking dance tune, isn't it?
It is evocative of that postmodernism that was prevailing at the time. You had the Matrix in 99, and then things started to change in terms of people looking at things through ironic means. If you take what Britpop was doing and you move it over across the Atlantic, to have this really, we're doing this because it's all a bit of a laugh, and we're just touring for the love of music. And also, it's really fucking catchy. That's what this song represents. And
Undeniable?
I love it.
It's
Undeniable
a good bit of
banger.
fun.
Yeah.
No, it's not really good.
7.5 is undeniable banger territory because it's got to be a song that everyone knows and everyone likes.
Yeah, I'll let you have it.
Yeah! Fire in the disco.
Fire in the gates of hell.
And of course, it is actually Jack White. I don't think it's ever been verified 100% that it is Jack White on vocals.
Yeah,
but
no,
it is Jack White on vocals.
It's been verified. It's
Black
Jack
Math
White is
by-
on vocals.
White Stripes was also nominated on this list, and if you listen to them back to back, you can hear it's exactly the same vocal.
Hold on, he did
And I
it.
love Jack White more for that. So the female vocals, don't you want to know how I keep starting fires?
Oh, right.
That's Jack White.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Me and Claire, when we're driving back from our holiday from the airport, when you have like ridiculously late flight back and you're absolutely knackered and you're driving back like 4 hours back to Plymouth from London. But this one came on because it was like indie night on the 8 radio session. This one came on and we were both fucking singing all of it. Like for her to really enjoy it as well, it's got to be pretty good. I feel that's what makes a song good. Even like rock snobs will like it.
Yeah.
And just your mum will like it as well.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
my
what
mum
makes it
liked this
good.
song.
My parents absolutely hate it and will not have Electric Six played in their house at all.
Oh,
They really dislike it.
That's a really weird thing to be like.
How would you know
Electric
that?
Sex will not be played in this house. Of all the groups that have ever existed, just Electric Six.
There's something about it that just pushes their buttons in a way they really don't like.
Is it because it's got a banging saxophone solo at the end as well, which I forgot to mention?
I think
must be it.
weirdly, I think there's something about his vocal that's when you listen to it in context of the album, there's something quite dark about his vocal.
He's playing like a stalker kind of psychopath character.
Which makes them quite uncomfortable, which is understandable in the context of the album.
But yeah, probably going to make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. But The lyrics are funny, so it's fine. In second place for this evening's podcast, getting towards the business end, this one scored 43.7 points and is much loved by everyone within reason. And this one has been mentioned on the podcast before, and I think we try to pass it off as an undeniable banger, potentially. The song is In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. It's one of Jim's picks. It's Coheed and Cambria. The band were the greatest bridges in music, according to Alex Evans, from the album In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. And this one is a bit of a whirlwind of a song. It's got 2 10s. And Jim?
The opening bit, the riff, I don't know how to start that. Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's syncopated with the drums as well.
It's such a cool intro, and then it kicks in, and then you've got the best bridge of all time. Claudio's voice was good back then.
It was so unique, though.
They knew how to write songs, and like this album after the first album that was a bit more like emo tinged.
I actually like the emo tinge album as much as I like this.
But this was like they had their own sound, and this album is just amazing. And it was really hard to pick a song. And that's why I just went for the longest one.
I think this is the best on the album, undeniably. I think they've always said they will. No, I don't know. I know you quite like Favourite House Atlantic, but I personally
like Favourite House Atlantic.
I think they always said they will always either end a set or start a set with this song, because even they go, this is probably our best song. I remember when I first heard this. You know when you have those songs where you go, I literally listened to it and went, that is the best song I've ever heard. And then to this day, it's still my favourite song of all time. So it's just every time it has that build up before it goes back into the chorus with the whoa. Every time just chills up my spine. It's so good to me. I can see why people wouldn't like it. His voice is high. It could be received as a bit emo-y. That might be some people, but I just think it's brilliant. The drummer is super underrated. When he left on their 4th album, he's come back now, but and they actually annoyingly nicked the Dillinger Escape Plan drummer for that album, and he quit Dillinger. But he was obviously missing on it. His very understated drumming is very good. The bass player, he doesn't play simple stuff. Well, he's always a bit more interesting than most bass players would be in this.
Apart from Welcome Home, look at the bass tab for the Coheed song Welcome Home. It is the most it's all open E for the entire song. It's open E. It's so boring.
As the shaman once said, he's a good.
That's awful. For an album and a band which is essentially just one giant like songs about a comic book the singer made, when none of the lyrics will ever really make sense unless you've listened to read them, which I personally haven't, but they're still catchy. I can sing every one of the lines. They're just so catchy and so well played.
Martyn, you scored this the lowest with a 7. What was your thinking behind the 7 on Coheed and Cambria?
Again, I just wasn't in the mood for heavy stuff.
This is barely that heavy.
It's quite heavy. It's quite an exhausting listen if you're not down for it.
I listen to songs are higher. I'm totally on board with that. You know, this Americana thing. And then I just wasn't in the mood for anything really heavy. It's just the way it was. It was wrong context.
I was the same with the rap songs on this list, to be honest. That it wasn't really in a rap mood, and I think I may have...
I think that reflects on our scores. It's quite. This is a very rock orientated top 15.
Apart from Jay-Z's Black Album, which you nominated the wrong song off.
No.
It was
Change Clothes with Pharrell is a classic.
And also Speakerbox The Love Below, where you also nominated the wrong song off.
No. Knowing is the jam. It's the only proper Outkast song on the album.
That's true, but it's not the best song on the album. 2003 wasn't a particularly strong year for hip-hop, but the reason why I think it is the best year for music is that the strength in depth in rock music and the directions that rock music went into were fantastic. And this is actually a good example of that. This is a concept album about a comic book by a band who started off as an emo post-hardcore band and then made this record, which is the best album they made. I don't think they've ever topped this. Weirdly, when I listen back to it, I actually like Second Stage Turbine Blade as much as I like this album.
For me, those first two are just almost on par, but this song has I think their best songs on the second album are better than the best songs on the first. That's the only
That's probably true. There's one of the tracks on the first album that's fantastic. The single.
Time Consumer.
Yeah, that's great. But this album they never topped this. The album after this I bought when it came out, and it had the Suffering, which was fantastic. And the album afterwards had Feathers, which is actually a great tune.
That's easily the best on the album.
Yeah, by a long way. So it turns out their rock ballads are really good, but nothing else nothing else grabs me. I saw them live 2 years ago. They're still pretty good, but on this album, he sounds like Michael Jackson fronting an interesting metal band. I love it.
I don't think I can sit with that. I can't. Michael Jackson in the 70s and 80s is twice the vocalist.
Did you see Whittle squirm then?
Yeah,
I have a substitute. I have a substitute that you'll like, Tom, because I think I said in my notes here that this strikes the same kind of chords that John Anderson in Yes was making in the early 70s.
Yeah, it's far poppier than that, though.
Yeah, but I think in terms of tone, Michael Jackson had a purer tone to his voice. There's not the grit that this guy has, so they're very different for me. And Michael Jackson, his 90s stuff, he started adding more percussion into his vocal delivery. Maybe then, but I also don't think Michael Jackson was as good then, so it's very difficult.
What I'm referring to when I refer to the Michael Jackson-esque of the vocals is actually some of the intervals that he's using in the melodies are more reminiscent of that style of pop music than they are of a traditional metal vocal.
I would be more comfortable comparing him to Bruno Mars than Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
I think Bruno Mars has a similar vocal tone to Michael Jackson, but it's not quite as strong and pure. And I think this is more on par with that. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
I scored
Bruno
this
Mars is a
7.4.
lot after this.
Not influence, just pure comparison from an aesthetic point.
Yeah. I still wager if you'd have picked a favourite House Atlantic, it might have hit the top spot.
Oh, but it's just not as good a song. It's really good, but it's easily their most poppy single song they could have done. It's the single song for a reason.
It's the tightness. It's a very tight song, and it can turn on a sixpence. And it's very emotional, but the problem I have that stopped me from rating this anything above a 7.4 is purely because I don't really like the lyrics. I don't really find anything that I can identify within it. So it's this wonderfully crafted, beautifully sounding piece of music that I don't feel appeals to me. So it's like me saying it's not for me, but it is. It does hit certain metrics for me. So it's a very strong song, and I do like it, and I will listen to it of my own volition, of the playlist. I'll select it out and I'll listen to it. But it's never going to appeal to me as much as it is to you guys, purely because
we have extreme
it's not
nostalgia as well.
I didn't listen to it at the time either. So other than via osmosis, when I was around like you guys and you'd play it.
Live, this song is amazing as well. Once you get that crowd, because they did it a lot more in their albums following this, a lot more of the crowd like chanting stuff, because obviously it worked really well live. So they started rinsing that a bit. It's the same reason at the end of Welcome Home they start doing it. Doesn't even need to be there. It's just thumbnailed in. It's just because it works so well in this song.
Any more thoughts on Cohen and Cambria?
Yeah, got to rate a song highly if it's got an Ebo in the intro.
Yeah, true.
First in tonight's list, I think you've all called it. Jim, I know you're going to have to dip out in a second, so we will discuss it a little bit further beyond that.
Horse the Band.
But it's not Horse the Band. This song scored 4 10s and an 8.7. The 8.7 was from me. The song has already been agreed as an undeniable banger on this podcast before, so we discussed it to death a little bit, but we've got to give plaudits because it is an exceptional song. The top song of 2003 is Minerva by Deftones.
Yes,
so that
amazing.
means, Martyn, you will be selecting the next podcast. We'll say farewell to you, Jim, because married life means we'll be in trouble. Better get off.
I just want to say thank you so much for Songs for Hire. Nice one.
You are in for such a treat when you listen to more of it, Martyn, honestly.
My God,
you've got albums
so
and albums of brilliance to get through. But I agree with what everyone's about to say about Minerva, because it's an incredible song. And it's the peak of Deftones. But yes, farewell, everyone.
Farewell.
See you later, man. This song White Pony was a great album, and I bought it when it came out. Strangely enough, I didn't buy Around the Fur at the time, but I bought White Pony, and I really liked it. And a lot of people will argue White Pony is Deftones' best album, and it does have Change in the House of Flies, but the production on it hasn't stood up as well as the production on this track still sounds good today. It's really well put together. It's well produced. Chino's vocal is exceptional. The quiet, loud dynamic, the intro and the guitars sound massive.
Chino Marino's vocals, I've described them as jagged air. I think that the song sounds like a plunge into it starts off on the surface of the ocean with that kind of nice little clean arpeggio, and then it plunges into a vast ocean full of rusted shipwrecks for me. That's like the imagery that this evokes. It's just a big descent into this big, bold space full of darkness and gloom. It's very unhinged, and it's almost lazy in how it's in the rhythm of it. It feels so casual. It's not easy to play at all, but they've got a groove to it, propelling it into the abyss.
I will say that most Deftones guitar parts are fairly simple to play.
Yep.
They're hard.
But I'm coming from my perspective as a non-guitarist.
They're mostly like it's mostly get a guitar, down tune it to fucking C, and hit a great big power chord. And I have no problem with that. I am there for that. But it's not complicated to play. I think this album is, for me, the best Deftones album. And controversially, I'd say this is their best album, followed by Saturday Night Wrist, followed by White Pony, to which Alex will get really pissed off.
Absolutely fight you on Saturday Night Wrist. It's not even a good album.
I love it so much. The thing you will notice about Deftones' back catalogue is Steph Carpenter and Chino Marino constantly seem to disagree on direction. Steph Carpenter will probably refuse to play anything off their album Gore Live because he doesn't think it's heavy enough.
I would agree with him.
Yeah, I'd probably agree as well. And this album, Chino's wanting to be shoegaze and Steph's wanting to be heavy as balls blends together perfectly. This album is one of the reasons why 2003 is such a good year for music, because it changed the way lots of metal bands were formed. Because not only did they make a metal band that made grown-up new metal, exploring interesting lyrical themes without being puerile or sexist or racist, they also managed to get a chart hit with Minerva, which hit the UK top 40 with a weird video where they're all on sand dunes, just playing music in a desert. This meant that this sort of post-metal, what became post-metal later, hit the big time. And without this album, most of the music that I listen to today doesn't exist. Bands like Death Heaven, later Converge, relies on this. It really changed the game in a lot of ways.
We've discussed, haven't it? Deftones is its own genre now. There are metal bands which just sound like Deftones.
I'm going to be controversial here in my favourite Deftones album. And it's a compilation. My favourite Deftones album is the 2011 compilation Covers. They cover some absolutely... they're great songs, but they produce magnificent covers of them, such as their version of Drive by The Cars, which is incredible. Their version of Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want by The Smiths, which is incredible. They cover Sade. They cover Sade with No Ordinary Love. The Cardigans, who were also nominated for this list and should have been higher. Do You Believe by the Cardigans, Lynyrd Skynyrd's Simple Man, Ghosts by Japan, which is a banger, The Chauffeur by Duran Duran, and they cover If Only Tonight We Could Sleep, which was originally by The Cure. That is a banging cover set, and it's incredible. Check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, I know it. It'll never top this album, but yeah, Minerva deserved winner, definitely.
I do think it is a worthwhile winner. There are some other genres that I would like to explore, which we'll do so on the YouTube channel, because I have some thoughts about the list as a whole. But I think that we're going to wrap up there because it has gone on for quite a while. The only thing that remains to be seen tonight is Martyn. What are we doing next time?
Best guitar solos, come on.
Well,
he wants to do a Radiohead episode.
I do want to do a Radiohead episode, but I like the idea of best guitar solos.
Okay.
Because I know Tom doesn't like guitar solos.
Oh,
Was it you or
James,
Whistle? I can't remember.
I don't like guitar solos, but James
I
E
love
has
guitar
guitar.
solos.
James E has guitar solo on "Stand Inside Your Love" is the best guitar solo, followed by James E has guitar solo on "For Martha." The only two guitar solos I really like.
Let's have this argument next time. We'll wrap up now. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Go to the blog. Give £5 to the Patreon if you're a really kind person. Check us out on YouTube. Listen for free. And there's only one question I have for you. Are you going to stay funky? Let's find out. Yeah, see, Jim, you should have stuck around for that one. Bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.